You are tuned to Channel 9, Kennett, Zenith Cablevision. Thank you for watching. It's time for talk. Each evening at this time, Monday through Friday, Rosemary interviews local personalities and others who bring items of interest to this community. Time for Talk is a community betterment service designed to cooperate with our local community betterment program. Tonight's program originates in our Time for Talk studios in the Slicer Street Church. And now, it's time for talk.
And we have a story for you. This is one of those things that you would never know, that I would never have known except by chance conversation. We take for granted many times our utilities and the way things are, but they have not always been like that, and sometimes it's been a tremendously hard-fought battle to have the things we have now. For instance, our city light, gas, and water has not always been city light, gas, and water. It started out as city sewer water and sewer plant. Then it became city light plant, and the electrical generating capacity came to the city, but thereby hangs a tale. We have the gentleman who's going to tell us that tale today. It's Mr. A.M. Riggs, and the date that we're going to talk about is 1941, and that's some 47 years ago. Mr. Riggs was mayor pro tem, had been on the city council for some 4 or 5 years at that point. You were quite a young man at that point. And you just pitched right into the middle of this battle to get the electrical generating plant here for Kennett. I'd like for you to tell everybody who's watching the story you told me one day as I was in Riggs.
Well, you want to know about how we got the light.
I want to know
why we got it.
Right. I just want to know it all.
The government back those days was helping all communities to build municipal light plants and water plants and courthouses, and city halls, everything, schools, and Kennett wanted a municipal light plant. The cost of lights were rather expensive. The power company that was operating here at that time had a monopoly, and we decided that if we could do something for the people, back those days about $12 a week was the average pay for the people, and we decided that if we could build them a light plant, we could sell lights for at least $1 a month cheaper than was being sold at the present time, at that time. And we decided if that would do that, why, in 12 months' time, and they could save $1 every month, we could free those people from their toils, at least 1 week out of every year.
Okay, so now that's quite an income advantage. $1 a day doesn't sound like much now.
Not $1 a day, now, $1 a month.
But when you consider that's a week's wages in a year's time,
we freed almost the average person. Of course, there's some made lots of money then, like they do now, but there was a lot that didn't make hardly any.
$1 a day was good pay for a lot of people who were working on WPA projects.
$12 a week was a reasonably good job,
yes.
Good average job.
Yes.
So we decided we'd build a municipal light plant.
Okay, now this was not all that interesting to the people who were here with the monopoly.
No, they weren't interested in that at all because it was going to cost them money.
Okay.
And they were doing a good job. They were good people. They tried hard. They had to do whatever was in their power.
And they did a good job.
And they did a good job. Now, they kept our feet to the fire, but we undertook to do this thing, and we worked at it diligently. And but we just couldn't get the job done. Every time we would come up with a trick, we first got the approval of the government to get a $139,000 loan to build this plant with. That was everything. And they have 2 little lightning bug light engines down here in the power plant yet. I was down there this morning just looking the place over before I came here.
And they still have the original
They're still there. They produce 600 horsepower apiece and 400 kilowatts. And that's what Kennett started with, 800-watt generator.
And it was a big plant at that time.
Well, that was all we had.
Okay, all right.
And we went to work and got the loan from the government, had it approved, and had the money here. But we couldn't spend it.
What do you mean you couldn't spend it?
Well, because we were enjoined by the power company not to spend the money. They kept putting up reasons why, legally, we couldn't put them out of business or even compete with them.
Okay, now tell me, what's one reason that they would give that you could not?
They had multitude of reasons, and this thing went on for years and years and years. And every time we would come up with, we thought ready to build a plant, they'd come up with some kind of a new injunction to prevent us from doing it. And finally, we decided we'd go to Kansas City and hire a Kansas City lawyer that knew his business on this particular phase of legal business. And he came down here and he helped us, and we got along a lot faster. Then along toward the very last, in 41, of course the war hadn't started yet then, but along toward the very last, we thought we were getting ready to build it. And he told us to go ahead and get right ready, and we'd even placed the orders for all this equipment, which wasn't much, for $139,000.
Well, but now that was a big expenditure at that time.
At that time.
Yes.
So we'd placed that, and we'd even had the poles to build a municipal distribution system on the grounds. But at the last minute, they came up with a positive stop, and we got our lawyer from Kansas City down here, and he said, "No, I'll tell you," said, "you're not going to build this light plant." Said, "They've got you enjoying now," and said, "They have really performed a masterpiece."
Well, what had they done? What had they done that was really the masterpiece that was going to really stop
they come up with an idea that it would be illegal. I mean, they put that on to the court. Now, this is a federal thing now. It's federal.
Okay.
It's not local.
That it would be illegal.
Yes. And they went to work, and they proved that we couldn't spend that money under the circumstances. So it was an awful lick.
Okay.
So we said, "Isn't there any way it could be done?" He said, "Yes, there's one way." Said, "If one of you all will take the initiative on this thing and the rest of you not stir in it," said, "if that one will do it, then you can build it. All you got to do is sign the vouchers to start the thing, and after you once start it, they can never stop it." And,
okay, so once started, you can't be stopped, but it's illegal to start.
And that's right, and it would have been a misappropriation of federal funds. It's the same as somebody embezzling uncle's money. So what we did, we had a meeting, kind of a clandestine meeting one night. But first
now,
we had
you're
a meeting.
talking about who? The city council?
City council.
Okay. All right.
We had this meeting, and we let it be known that it would be there that night, and there was right people were there, and they heard us, and we postponed the meeting then to a later date. But we'd already made up our mind when the later date was going to be.
What do you mean the right people were there and they you wanted the opposition to hear your plans?
Well, we didn't want to hear all the plans, just part of the plan.
Oh, you wanted them to hear what you wanted them to hear.
That's right.
And then you finished up.
Well, we did the meeting, postponed it for a later time, but the later time was as soon as the crowd was all gone. Why, we had the next meeting.
Okay, all right. So what kind of word went out? Well, go ahead and tell me how this worked.
Well, I'll tell you how this worked. It was simple. After they left, why, that's where we finally found out that somebody would have to go to the penitentiary if we built a municipal light plant. Well, all of them said, "Not us. We're too busy. We've got a family. We've got a business, or we just can't afford it, and we don't think that's very nice to go to the penitentiary." So this lawyer from Kansas City was there. He said, "Well, if you're not going to do that, you're through. Just forget it altogether." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I want this light plant for the people of this town so bad, I'll go to the penitentiary. I'll volunteer." He said, "If you volunteer," he said, "you know now this is a serious thing. You're fooling with Uncle." He said, "This is not going to be a local thing that you can weasel out of." He said, "You're going to go to the penitentiary." I said, "Well, I believe I'll try it." I said, "Maybe they'll let me off for good behavior or something." So we decided we'd do it. So that was toward the last of the week. I think really it was on a Saturday night. And we decided that we'd get these people here to set these poles, to be here and set some poles on Monday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that was to be the first work that was to be done.
Work.
And the first money that was paid out was going to get you in real trouble.
Me personally.
You personally, because there was an injunction against the
spending that money. It was embezzlement. It was the same as it was a felony.
It was a felony to spend the money that you had an injunction against you not to spend.
That's right.
Okay. So at 5 o'clock on Monday morning?
Well, the rest of the council went to Hayti, where Gwynn's Cafe were at that time, called Gwynn's, and they were drinking coffee. They got there about 4:30. It was an all-night cafe, and I was here by myself. And the people.
Okay, they deliberately went out of town.
Oh yeah, so it couldn't be. They couldn't get in trouble on this thing.
Okay, so
I was going to wear the.
They didn't want to go to the penitentiary. Just you was going to go.
I volunteered.
Okay, all right. Okay,
so I could sign the vouchers, and they fixed out a voucher for me. And all I had to do was it was already signed, and I had to fill in the amount. So these people showed up about 5 o'clock when they were supposed to, and they had 2 poles with them to set. And they dug the holes there as quickly as possible. But somebody told the light company they were working, and wasn't long till the municipal light manager showed up.
Now, you hadn't put out this word.
Oh, no, that was all at QT. Everything was on the QT.
So the man has dug 2 poles quickly.
Holes.
2 holes quickly.
Behind the old city hall. That's where the museum is now.
Okay.
And we kept hurry. And wasn't too long till somebody must have spotted what we were doing. And here came
5 in the morning.
At 5 in the morning,
okay.
The manager, and then their 2 lawyers, they were local lawyers, showed up, and the sheriff showed up. And they come around there and said, "What are you all doing?" And I asked this man, I said, "How much do we owe you right now?" He said, $17.50. So I filled it in and handed in the thing. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're building the municipal light plant."
And you had already paid $17.50 for the first work on that light plant.
That's right.
Okay, so your neck's in a noose now.
I'm hung.
Okay, okay, all right.
All right, then they said, "What are you going to do about this?" I said, "Do you know what you're doing?" I said, "I sure do. We're going to build a light plant. I told you that already." They said, "You know it's a felony what you've done?" I said, "So they tell me. So they tell me." They said, "Do you know the responsibilities of this? That you're maybe going to the penitentiary?" I said, "I know. I've already signed the thing. I made up my mind. My conscience is good. My mind is clear. I've done it. And if you want to know it, you can tell them what you want to. I knew what I was doing." And one of the lawyers said, "Mr. Sheriff, do your duty."
And what did the sheriff do?
And he said, "Do you want him arrested?" He said, "That's what we want him arrested." So they took me down to the...
Who was the sheriff?
Dewey Miles.
Okay, all right.
They took me down to the old county jail that had there, and they made my picture.
Weren't you a little worried?
I was scared to death. I'm not a brave man.
Okay,
I was scared to death.
Okay, all right. We've got a couple of minutes. Can you do this?
Well, we'll finish it up here real quick. So they made my picture, and they fingerprinted me, turned me loose on my own,
recognizance, yeah.
Yeah, recognizance. And so we went on about our business. That was the last of the work for that time, but the people said, our lawyer showed up about that time, and he said, "Go ahead and build it." So they went to work and started building the plant that day. I mean, putting the poles up that day, the distribution system.
Okay, now then, was there trouble after that?
Oh, yeah. They really meant business. I mean, they were upset, but it wasn't long till the war started, and they didn't do much about it because I was a pilot, and I went to work flying. Then I went in the Navy, and I was going 3 or 4 years.
And it just dragged along, but the plant was being built?
Oh, the plant was built then, finished.
Okay.
It was finished the next year.
Oh, okay.
Right after the war. They already had this thing, and they've got built real quick. But they built the plant. They didn't do anything with me because I was gone for 4 years. And then when I came back, why, we did one thing, and we did another, and just tried along until John Dalton was governor. He was my lawyer. And Judge Billings, he wasn't a federal judge, he was just a local judge.
Mm-hmm.
But he kept advising, and they helped me. And finally, the very last, the doctor kind of moved in on it. Dr. George Dunmire moved in on it, and the last 2 years I was under, my health was too bad to be tried. And then after 10 years, they told me I wouldn't have much trouble. But I'm still under federal indictment, so you're looking at a potential jailbird.
Okay, because of that, because we have a city light, gas, and water, you're still under indictment?
Well, but the time ran out in 10 years.
Okay,
so
all right, okay. And
I hope.
You have heard a most interesting story that probably you never would have heard if we had not gotten Mr. Dolph Riggs to sit down in this chair and talk with us about his role and being a citizen of Kennett.
I want to say something about 1 minute.
Okay.
Quick. Larry Jones, our current manager, is one of the greatest managers that I've ever seen.
And Larry probably gave him $1 to say
No,
that.
he didn't know I was coming. He didn't know I was coming.
All right, your guest, Mr. A.M. Riggs, who was Mayor Pro Tem of Kennett in 1941. Thank you.
You have been watching Time for Talk. Time for Talk is a community betterment service designed